SLT Speed Up සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා data double. Speed up with SLT.
Making headlines on First at 9. CID's curiosity. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa endures approximately 3 hours of Criminal Investigation Department's company. Rag culture. Minister of Higher Education lambasts ragging at state universities. Erinus report. Deputy Minister Nalin Bandara expresses determination to defeat the delimitation report in Parliament. Rumbling oil saga. Iran slashes prices to Asian markets in desperation to retain market share. Analysts say Sri Lanka unlikely to be affected.
We can see that opportunity as a massive plus for Sri Lanka.
So this particular barter arrangement is of significance because there is then limited movement in foreign currency and
SSC T20 League. Sri Lanka cricket to give free entrance to spectators.
I would urge you all to give the publicity which is required for this tournament.
A very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9 on other Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now moving on to a top story tonight. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa today endured the company of officers from the Criminal Investigation Department for approximately 3 hours. CID officers called on him at his residence along the Vijayarama Mawatha in Colombo, where they obtained a statement from the former president over the abduction of journalist Keith Noyer in 2008.
Keith Noyer, the former deputy editor of English newspaper The Nation, was abducted on the 22nd of May in 2008. A day later, Noyer was dropped off near his residence, having been severely assaulted. During the CID's process of inquiry, a statement from Speaker Karu Jayasuriya was also recorded. The CID has given prior notice to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa regarding their visit to record a statement pertaining to the abduction of the journalist. Many politicians, civil activists and religious leaders were seen present at his residence today. CID officers arrived at the former president's residence at 11:20 this morning. However, the former president was not present owing to a wedding. The former president arrived at his residence few minutes later. While the former president was being questioned by the CID, various politicians who arrived at his residence expressed views to media.
It's a joke. If they had brains, I don't think they would have come to record a statement from the former president, as he won't utter a word. This is an incident that dates back to 2008. It's been 3 years since the government came to power. They only remembered to obtain statements after 3 years. Underworld activities have become rampant, but the CID is busy taking statements from the former president. Not only journalists, we should also conduct inquiries into injustices that happen to all others as well. But if these inquiries are politically motivated, then there is no hope for justice.
Following a session which lasted approximately 3 hours, where a statement was recorded from the former president, officers of the Criminal Investigations Department left around 2:15 p.m.
Allegedly, Karu Jayasuriya had called me, and so has Alhakon. They questioned as to what my views are on Keith Noyer being released after allegedly contacting me. Given the number of calls I receive, I don't remember whether Karu Jayasuriya called me or not. So I asked them whether it's wrong to release someone. These are political agendas and depict political vengeance. The CID will not come to my doorstep without the knowledge of the hierarchy. There was one fine point, however. According to them, Karu Jayasuriya had called me at around 11:20 p.m. and that shows that I'm not asleep by 10 p.m.
Meanwhile, the CID's visit to the residence of the former president for the purpose of recording a statement drew various views in the political arena.
Members of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna of the Minuwangoda Pradeshiya Sabha were seen wearing black bands in protest of the CID recording a statement from former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Meanwhile, many politicians expressed their views over the matter.
I believe that wrongdoers should be identified and society should be led in the right direction. Assaulting journalists mean that this democratic society is falling apart. Such incidents should be thoroughly investigated. He is giving the statement at his own will, so in my opinion this can be viewed as a good move. We cannot deny any legal institution's right to question us, so the former president possesses the strength, the ability, the understanding as well as the vision to face it. When the country's citizens are called to record a statement, we should go there, but he had the luxury to give the statement at his residence. Such questions and inquiries are so important. Leadership or titles should not be a curtain to escape or hide from these inquiries.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today echoed his own pledge to reduce the country's debt to 70% of the gross domestic production by the year 2020. The Premier expressed his determination to achieve it while addressing a function held in Monaragala today.
The village Devpudagama, established in Kotiyagala of Siambalanduwa, commemorating 3 years for the government of good governance, was vested with the public today.
Maithripala Sirisena Janadipaytumage Pradhanatwen.
It's been 3 years since the government of good governance was established under President Maithripala Sirisena. In other words, we can call these 3 years where we could breathe. We are vesting this village with you to celebrate that. Have we killed at least one journalist? As a form of gratitude, our journalists accuse us every single day. At least they should have told people about what we do. We continued this government amid difficulties. We brought a standby agreement by the International Monetary Fund and will cut off our expenses. We are planning to reduce debt. It will be reduced to 70% of the GDP of the country by the year 2020. I should tell one thing. This pit we filled is still deep. But we will not try to fill it, because Rajapakshas are at the bottom of it. We request not to bring them back from the pit.
The joint opposition pledges to work off biggest anti-government protests held in history of Sri Lanka on the 5th of next month. Its members expressed these lofty expectations while addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
The joint opposition held a media briefing today to bring the public up to speed on the protest set to be held on the 5th of September, titled Janabalaya Kolombata.
It's been 3 years since this government came to power. We have convened a huge anti-government protest on the 5th of September against the Singapore Free Trade Agreement. It will eventually lead to the sale of the entire country. Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe yesterday said that the Sri Lankan government has the right to make amendments to the Free Trade Agreement with Singapore. I have no doubt that it is a lie. We challenge him to show where it is mentioned. We can't change anything without the approval of the government of Singapore. We invite all the Sri Lankans to come to Colombo on the 5th of September. We will not announce a venue yet. We will announce it later.
Minister of Higher Education and Cultural Affairs Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa today revealed that 637 students who were registered under the University Grants Commission for the year 2016 to 2017 were left universities owing to being ragged. He made the revelation while addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
The most brutal underworld in the world is in state universities. 17 people are reported to be dead due to ragging. We sent 6 members of the Buddhist clergy to the university in Mathura from the additional list. Around 40 members of the clergy ordered them to be naked and brutally assaulted them until morning. 5 of them are imprisoned at the moment. The day before yesterday, 5 new students in the Advanced Technological Education Institute in Navala spoke against ragging. Look at this student. Around 40 students pinned him to the floor and stamped on him. He was hospitalized. This is the work of the party Peratugami. In the year of 2016-17, 637 students refused to continue state university education after registration due to ragging. Before that, in 2015-2016, 1,352 students left the university after registration. It's the Peratugami who are behind this, and there are some slaves of them in the state university system. Either we should leave the government without ruling the country or let this underworld rule the country. One of these two should happen. We have requested the Ministry of Finance to give them concessions as much as possible. That amendment will happen soon. I accept the fact that the artists should be given concessions as much as possible, especially in a country like ours.
Deputy Minister of Law and Order Nalin Bandar is determined to defeat the delimitation report on the Provincial Council elections in Parliament. Speaking at the programme Gamperila worked off in Gukaralla today, the Deputy Minister objected to the delimitation report set to be tabled in Parliament on the 24th, saying it is riddled with errors.
Even though the Parliament gave its approval for a new electoral system for the Provincial Council election, it hasn't approved the new delimitation system, as it's not presented to Parliament yet. We clearly state that we do not prefer the new system much, as we prefer the old one. We saw many errors of it during the local authorities election, and we believe that the two-thirds majority will not be garnered to pass the delimitation report. Earlier, we voted to pass this system, but not this time. We don't know what our leaders would say, but I believe that the delimitation report will not be passed in Parliament. If it did not pass, the Provincial Council election would be held within a short period of time according to the old system.
Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister responded to questions raised by journalists following the event.
It is wrong to point the finger at the police as a whole, but I accept the existence of corrupt officials from top to bottom. I am unaware of it, but before contesting an election, there are much more that he should attend within the Sri Lanka police.
Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine Dr. Raj Senaratne is buoyant over the measures the government has taken to mitigate lack of human resources in the health sector. Addressing the event held in Jaffna today, the minister said that the World Health Organization has commended the efforts of the government geared towards providing good health services to the public.
Now the problem is the human resources. When I took over to see, I had only half the cadre of the specialists. So I called the PGIM, every subject the head was called. And I told them that I need actually to double the training. And I set a human resources unit in the Ministry of Health. That is the first human resources unit in the public service. So according to the human resources, they have calculated and given me all the required consultants for up to 2025. So about the doctors, we don't have enough doctors. So we have started new medical faculties. One medical faculty will come up at Wayamba, at Koliyapit. Then another one is for the Sabaragamuwa campus. So I am doing a new hospital at Panadura, spending about 22 billion rupees, a new national hospital for Panadura. Developing the Karapiti hospital, twice the size of what Karapiti was earlier. So even the other paramedics, we are starting a new faculty for paramedics with the Runa affiliation to the Runa University. So therefore, we have done all the necessary things to have a very good health service in the country. So at the moment, even the WHO says that Sri Lanka's health service, this is one of the best health services in the entire world.
The closure of South India's Cochin airport is extended until the 26th of this month owing to the flood situation prevailing at the airport. In view of the situation, Sri Lankan Airlines announces that passengers hoping to board flights from Cochin to Colombo can use any other South Indian airport which the airline services. For passengers who've made reservations to fly out of Cochin, meanwhile, can either disembark at the Trivandrum or any other South Indian airport. In the meantime, Sri Lankan Airlines has temporarily increased the number of journeys between Trivandrum and Colombo in consideration of current requirements. Let's now cross over to a short commercial break and we'll join you with business news on the other side.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
In the world of oil, it's hard to compartmentalize complex geopolitical conflicts. The friction between the United States and Iran is having a profound effect on the global oil markets as the Western superpower pledges more sanctions on Iran. In a bid to retain its market share, Iran in turn looks set to lower its crude prices for Asian clients who are its biggest buyers. According to unnamed sources from the country's oil ministry, the discount is part of the nature of the global markets being offered by all oil exporters. Speaking to First at 9, business cycle analyst Dr. Kenneth De Silva says that this development comes at a time where Sri Lanka's foreign reserves are under a lot of stress and the currency is vulnerable to depreciation, which has resulted in the government having to search for mechanisms to address its foreign currency shortfall.
In November, US sanctions on Iran are due to enter into force that could drive down the Persian Gulf nations' exports and upend the global oil market. There are already signs that it will be harder for the country to export as some international insurers stop covering shipments. The US measures require buyers to cut purchases or run the risk of their banks being excluded from the American financial system. On the other hand, if they do not scale back, then there is a risk of spiraling crude prices. The US has said that it will persuade countries which currently buy Iran oil to cut imports by as much as 1 million barrels a day when the sanctions take effect. In order to save its market share, Iran will now lower the price of its crude for Asian clients who are its biggest buyers. According to Reuters, the national Iranian oil company has reduced oil prices for Asian clients by between 75 to 90 cents a barrel, with prices for Western clients down by 50 cents a barrel. India, meanwhile, the second biggest crude customer of Iran, may cut its import from Islamic Republic by 50% to secure a waiver from the US to continue with shipments. China, however, has rejected a US request to cut its oil purchases from Iran, but has agreed to not ramp up purchases. In the European Union, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini says the bloc is determined to preserve the Iran nuclear deal and calls the consequences of abandoning it catastrophic. In Sri Lanka, however, which is heavily dependent on oil imports, the cabinet was told recently that Iran had agreed to use the Sri Lankan rupee as the medium of exchange to carry out its fuel trade transactions with Sri Lanka because of problems in using the US dollar owing to economic sanctions likely to be imposed on Iran.
So this particular barter arrangement is of significance because there is then limited movement in foreign currency, and at a time where Sri Lanka's foreign reserves are under a lot of stress and the currency is also vulnerable to depreciation, this sort of arrangement might be a temporary mechanism to give Sri Lanka some respite on the external finances point of view. So we could see that the need for such mechanisms as a result of the widening trade deficit and also the deterioration in the balance of payments is prompting Sri Lanka to think in different manners to address its foreign currency shortfall.
According to analysts, should US sanctions on Iran come into effect, the market will have to prepare for a supply squeeze of up to 1 million barrels per day. As a result, crude prices could push up a lot closer to $100 per barrel.
So what would the implications of US sanctions on Iran oil imports be on Sri Lanka? Responding to journalists today, Minister of Petroleum Resources Arjun Rantunga said that although there will be minimal effect on Sri Lanka fuel prices, the government is taking steps to be less dependent on one particular country for crude oil imports.
We have not made a decision as yet, but we do know there are sanctions being imposed on Iran. However, we are not sure what they are. We will take a decision as a government when the time comes. We have been misled even in this instance. There are many types of crude oil in the market. Therefore, we are going to ensure that we do not stick to one country when it comes to importing crude oil. A group consisting of senior officials of these refineries are working towards this. We are also planning to open a new refinery and many investors have come on board. We are in the process of selecting the most suitable investor for this. By the end of this year, I hope to sign an agreement to materialize the project. We do not import oil only from Iran, but other places as well. There are around 10 parties who supply oil to us at present. We have received benefits as well as quality produce, but I do not think we will see any impact on our prices.
Meanwhile, former minister expressed his views on the Iranian fuel crisis to First at 9.
In fact, Sapugaskanda refinery was built by the Iranians, and subsequently, due to the issues that the Iran faced, steps were taken to adjust Sapugaskanda to cater to other oil, specifically to cater to Murban oil. As of now, even the time that I was holding the post of Minister of Petroleum Resources, Sapugaskanda was not in a position to accommodate Iranian oil. So, of course, due to its technical situation, it was not possible. But there was a proposal which was approved during my period to improve Sapugaskanda technically in order to be able to accommodate, entertain crude oil of any region. But though the approval was obtained, that was subsequently not implemented.
The All-Share Price Index closed in red as a result of price losses in counters such as Ceylon Tobacco Company, CINCANNATI Hotels and Properties, with the turnover crossing 569 million rupees. A similar behaviour was witnessed in the S&P SL20. Furthermore, foreigners remained active, closing as net sellers, mainly due to foreign selling in John Keel's holdings. Total foreign sales accounted for 72.3% of the turnover. Here's Stefan Diavis from NDB Securities with a review of how the markets performed during the past week.
During the week, the ASPI lost 1.5%. Similarly, the S&P SL20 decreased by 2.4%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 444 million rupees. Diversified sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in banks, finance and insurance sector.
Three-time Prime Minister of India Atal Bihari Vajpayee was cremated with full state honours in Delhi today. An exceptional orator and a poet, Vajpayee passed away yesterday at the age of 93 after aiding in hospital owing to age-related illnesses. The former Indian Premier was considered the moderate face of Hindu nationalism and was even admired by prominent political foes.
Tributes have been pouring in for former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who died aged 93. Thousands of people lined the streets to pay their respects during his funeral procession amid tight security. Vajpayee was cremated with full state honours in a national memorial estate in Delhi. A poet and a politician, the former Indian PM was being treated for age-related illnesses in Delhi's AIIMS hospital. He was one of the founding members of Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, which currently governs India. Considered a giant of Indian politics, Vajpayee served as Prime Minister 3 times between 1996 and 2004 and was instrumental in making India a global nuclear power. During his second stint as Prime Minister in 1998, he surprised the world by announcing that India had conducted a series of underground nuclear tests. Indian leaders mourned the demise of the former Indian MP who once travelled by bus to Pakistan in a grand diplomatic gesture. Top leaders of the country, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj, visited Vajpayee's residence to pay tribute to the former Prime Minister. A 7-day national mourning has been announced by the government. Expressing his grief, Modi said Vajpayee's demise had ended an era with him losing a father-like figure. But unlike Modi, who critics say is a polarizing figure despite his pledge of inclusive development for India's 1.3 billion people, Vajpayee was the moderate face of Hindu nationalism, admired even by prominent political foes. Vajpayee was one of the few leaders of the BJP to express anguish when hundreds of Muslims were killed, rioting in 2002 in Gujarat, which Modi governed. However, he also defended a Hindu campaign for construction of a temple on the disputed site in Ayodhya, which Hindus believe was the birthplace of God King Rama. Vajpayee suffered a stroke in 2009 and withdrew from public view, and today he made his final retreat.
Let's now cross over to a short commercial break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Sri Lanka's franchise-based T20 tournament Sri Lankan Premier League is set to kick off on the 21st of August at the R. Premadasa Stadium. Speaking at the ceremony to introduce players taking part in the tournament, the CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket urged the public to encourage the players and to provide publicity required for the tournament, while saying entrance to the grounds will be free of charge.
The franchises playing in the Sri Lankan Premier League tournament was introduced today. The event was held under the patronage of the Chief Executive Officer of the Sri Lanka Cricket, Ashley De Silva. Colombo, Galle, Dambulla and Kandy will be the 4 teams contesting in the competition. Colombo will be led by Dinesh Chandimal, Galle will be led by Suranga Lakmal, while Angelo Matthews will lead the Kandy side with Tissara Pereira leading Dambulla.
There was a lot of planning which went into this, mainly due to the fact that we had to secure a window, as we have a very, very tight schedule with the FTP of conducting the international tournaments. And it's very encouraging to note that we were able to do that with the ICC for 5 years to secure a window which we could play the T20 tournament as an international league in our country. Due to the circumstances which occurred in the month of May, we were compelled to make some alternative arrangements to replace the LPS. I would urge you all to give them the same support, encouragement and the publicity which is required for this tournament in order for us to have an international tournament next year.
Juan Martín del Potro looked to be in fine form as he dispatched his second-round opponent at the Cincinnati Open with ease. Much of yesterday's challenges came from the rain as the inclement weather interrupted play, forcing some players to remain in the locker room.
Juan Martín del Potro quickly dispatched South Korean Chung Hyun 6-2, 6-3 yesterday in a Cincinnati Open second-round match carried over from the previous day because of inclement weather. This marks Del Potro's 4th consecutive last 16 appearance in Cincinnati, where the Argentine appears to be in fine form right in time for the US Open, set to get underway on the 27th of August. Bad weather continued to play havoc with the evening schedule as second seed Roger Federer's match against Leonardo Mayer and Kevin Anderson's match against David Goffin failed to get underway. Several of yesterday afternoon's matches were suspended in progress, with Novak Djokovic leading 5th seed Grigor Dimitrov 2-6, 6-3, 2-1 and Marin Cilic tied with Karen Khachanov at 7-6, 3-6, 1-1. In third round action, big serving Milos Raonic beat fellow Canadian Denis Shapovalov 7-6, 6-4, while Spanish 13th seed Pablo Carreño Busta topped Dutchman Robin Haase 6-4, 6-2.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Shalina Fernando is at the Other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Forecast First. Starting off with your temperatures for tomorrow, that will vary between 20 and 35 degrees Celsius with the highest of 35 expected in Batticaloa and Ampara. Well, when looking at the map, a low pressure zone will develop in the western province and will gradually disappear. Well, the areas of Jaffna, Mana, Anuradhapura and Trincomalee will experience the sunny weather, while the areas of Vaunia, Kandy, Colombo, Galle and Matara as well as Hambantota will experience showers with thunder activity also expected. That's all from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
That's it from here at Other Derana, first at 9 for tonight. But as it is a Friday, usually we end the newscast with a good story. But today we want to do something different. Yesterday, the world lost a mega soul artist, Aretha Franklin. Her song Bridge Over Troubled Waters, Say a Little Prayer, Chain of Fools and many more songs did captivate over 6 generations of fans the world over. Aretha Franklin didn't see herself as a feminist icon, but she recorded several hits that became anthems for women, including You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Think and of course Respect. Tonight we want to pay homage to this Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, and leave you with this.
You haven't got the wrong number.
Aretha Franklin, born on the 25th of March 1942 in Memphis, Tennessee, began her career as a child singing gospel at a New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan, where her father C.L. Franklin was a minister. In 1960, at the age of 18, she embarked on a career recording for Columbia Records, but achieving only modest success. In 1998, Franklin received international acclaim for singing the opera Aria Nessun Dorma at the Grammy Awards that year, replacing Luciano Pavarotti. Later that year, she scored her final top 40 song with A Rose Is Still a Rose. Franklin recorded 112 charted singles on Billboard, including 77 Hot 100 entries, 17 Top 10 Pop singles, 100 R&B entries and 20 #1 R&B singles, becoming the most charted female artist in the chart's history. She won 18 Grammy Awards and with 44 Grammy nominations, including the first 8 awards given for Best Female R&B Vocal Performances. From 1968 through to 1975, she was one of the best-selling musical artists of all time, having sold more than 75 million records worldwide. She was seen as an icon of women empowerment throughout the world, despite she repeatedly saying that she wasn't. On the 9th of November 2005, former President of the United States George W. Bush presented the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award, to Franklin. The late singer has battled health issues for years, since first undergoing surgery in December 2010 for what was rumored at the time to be pancreatic cancer. Reports of Franklin being seriously ill first broke last Monday morning. A source close to Franklin for decades reported that Franklin had been battling cancer, and in the last 2 weeks her health increasingly failed. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, dead at 73.